Thank you for joining. Glad to see you all here on the third episode of TLDR. Today, we're going to talk about cost savings with resource control. And before we jump into that, I kind of wanted to also introduce my co-host, our resident Tony Stark, Sebastian Straub. Nice to see you again. And just before we kick things off for real, I wanted to say thank you primarily to you, our customers and the people that have attended, because we got some really great feedbacks from the ransomware episode. And some customers actually took action, upgraded their product, and start putting in place some of the things we were talking about. So yeah, I mean, to us, this is the greatest feedback because, it shows we bring you value, and we hope to do so in every episode that we're doing this. So thank you. Right. And today we're going to talk about save some money with resource control. Yeah, big topic. And I'll actually disclose to you how we came to this. When I joined the company, and as you know, I'm fairly new to N2W, I read this quote from one of our customers. I don't know if you can hear it. If you're here, Danny, so, shout out. We love Get. It's a great service. But I saw these numbers and I was like, oh, wow, this is marketing. This is not real. And I said, you know what? Let's do a session where we actually show you how you can get to these numbers. I'm going to kind of ruin the surprise about our next episode. Our next episode is going to continue with the cost saving element. It's just going to be more on the archiving side. So yeah, we're going to do a series of those two sessions just to show you how you can save some money with N2W as well. And of course, like every episode, we did some research. And apparently, there's a lot of money on the table, literally, or on the cloud, depending on how you think about it. And just before we did this episode, and to prepare for this one and the next one, I asked our CTO to send me our AWS bills so I can kind of take a look of what you probably guys are looking at on a monthly basis. I hope on a monthly basis, to try and understand the bill that you're paying. And boy, was I surprised. I got, I think, 5 long pages with little rows, one after the other, which half of them, yeah, of course, I'm not, not an expert on storage or infrastructure, but yeah, it was very hard to read, and I could definitely see how you can miss, unutilized resources or tools that you're using or not using for that matter. That's why there's 75% increase in cloud waste. It becomes hard to manage these. Of course, there's other troublesome statistics here. Sebastian, which one is the most troublesome for you?
I was going to say, by thinking, if anybody joining here is probably going to think, well, this is going to be a dry technical talk, but let me assure you it won't be. Because, come on, let's remember back in the day when you had server rooms filled with server racks and needed some major air conditioning to make sure that everything runs smoothly without any fires and melting. Well, nothing has really changed. Yes, you don't physically see the servers anymore, but someone somewhere runs a server and a big air conditioning unit. And today, we're on a mission to save the planet and your IT budget, one server at a time. That's right. Because less expensive runtime means less money in Jeff Bezos' pocket, and less cloud expense means a happier Earth. And I think I mentioned it's also doing wonders for your budget. And like you said, the numbers,
and your boss, for sure, and your boss.
Exactly right. Anytime you can save money, they're going to smile. And when the boss smiles, that's always a good thing. Yeah. And just looking at some of these numbers, on average, 32% of cloud budgets went up in smoke in 2022. That's right. Nearly a third of your cloud spend is like leaving your car running in the driveway while you're inside binge watching Netflix. And it's no surprise that 42% of CTOs and CIOs now consider cloud waste their number one challenge. It's basically like discovering you have a gym membership, which was renewed, even though you haven't been inside one since pre-pandemic days. But the good news is we're here to help you cancel that subscription to really only pay for what you need and start saving like a pro.
Yeah. How many of those gym subscriptions do you have, Sebastian?
How many have I taken? It's almost like that joke that people say, oh, quitting is easy. I've done it 15 times. It's the same thing with me. I've taken out many gym subscriptions. I'm going to do it this year. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Resource control. So I think these three numbers here: misconfiguration, number one; two, over provisioning; and three, forgetfulness, because you might even forget that some resources are running. So all three of those can be addressed. Resource control. Now, picture this. You throw a party, right? Your EC2 and RDS instances show up, and at first they're the life of the party, but then 2 a.m. rolls around and you're thinking, I'm getting too old for this. These guys are still hanging out, raiding my fridge, playing loud music, and you're just like, don't you have a home to go to? Well, today we're going to politely show them the door. Leaving your cloud instances running when they're not in use is about as useful as that treadmill I swore I'd use every day. Now it just sits there being a giant inconvenient coat rack, and it makes me feel guilty every time I walk past it. Let's be honest, those unused instances aren't getting any slimmer either, so time to turn them off and save yourself the cloud equivalent of buyer's remorse. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you the live product and how you can implement all of this. So let me switch to the N2W console. In the dashboard, as we've talked about many times before, one thing that's really interesting is over here. It's the cost savings. The cost savings is a visualization of how much money we can save you by utilizing a feature that we call resource control. Resource control, well, it's a little bit like when your parents say, turn off the light when you're not in the room. This is exactly the same thing. Why not turn off resources in the cloud that aren't actually being used? They're just humming along, and maybe people forget about it, and this is going to take care of this. So the way you configure this, and this is just a visualization of everything that we're saving. But of course, you can also drill more detailed into, well, what happens if I turn off my database servers or a file server that's not used outside business hours, that sort of thing. Now, when you go over here to the resource control groups, you can also see how each of the resource control groups that you're creating will then contribute to that number. And like you said, if you want to prove it to your boss that you're actually saving money, this is where you can export that information. So you can get that information, you can prove, hey, by the way, because we did this and that, and I did it, I implemented this, we're saving this much money. And I always joke, if you're looking for a raise, it's always good to have data that you can present. This is the kind of button that is important. So how does this work? Well, the resource control groups, you create them over here under new, big surprise. And I have one. Let's dive into this one. It's called all non-essentials. Non-essential services that I don't need, let's say outside business hours. That's how I have it configured. And there's different ways of how we can do this. So first off, you can choose, well, how do you want them turned off? Do you actually want to hibernate them? Now, hibernation is great for those instances that just need a little break, but you want them to be able to go back to work without starting from scratch. It's like a quick power nap for your servers. You save energy, reduce costs, and they wake up ready to work again very quickly, just like me after my third cup of coffee. Now, hibernation is one option, but not only can we hibernate these resources, but we can also actually turn them off, like off, full power down. No, that's commitment. So that's an option as well. The other thing is, how do I define what I want to turn off? So under operation targets, you choose, well, which resources would you like to turn off? Now, in my case, well, in this particular resource control group, it is really just one of my servers. It's not needed outside business hours. And then over here under schedules, that's where I can be really granular. How do I want to do this? And you can create as many of these schedules as you want. It doesn't have to be just, oh, well, there's one schedule and it has to fit for everything. So in my case, I have a schedule for every day. And I can say, okay, so at 6 o'clock in the evening, I want you to turn off. And in the morning at 8 o'clock, I want you to come back on. And on the weekend, I don't need you either. So I'm going to turn you off on Friday at 6 o'clock and come back on Monday. So with this schedule, which is super easy, as you can see, if you do the math, and trust me, I've done the math, then you're going to be able to save anywhere between 60 and 65% on the runtime cost for these instances. That's a tremendous savings, and that's exactly what Danny with Get did. He just turned off resources that employees need, and if the employees aren't in the office, well, then why do I have these resources running?
Yeah. Now wait, I have a question.
Sure.
Actually, you reminded me of something. It sounds awfully, similar to AWS's instance scheduler. What's the difference?
That's a good point. Yes, it does look and sound like AWS Instance Scheduler. Well, what's the difference here? So let's talk about why our solution is as easy as ordering pizza online. Seriously, it's all menu driven. And what you've just seen is me going through a graphical user interface. Meanwhile, over in AWS land, where they have AWS Instance Scheduler, you need to learn Lambda, set up a separate DynamoDB instance, then juggle some CloudFormation scripts like you're auditioning for a tech circus. And it's like AWS is handing you a Swiss Army knife and expecting you to build a house with it. While we're just over here giving you a simple click and go setup. No manual required, no headache involved. So this is going to be much easier for you to actually implement and immediately make use of it. It's one of those things, it's I have the same thing with my tech stuff on my TV. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Most of the buttons, I don't even know what they do. And if
Yeah,
you have power, but you can't use it because there's a lot of learning involved and a big learning curve, you're never going to make use of it. And this is exactly the opposite. This is super easy to implement. And you can even automate this because, well, probably you're already making use of tags, right? To define who owns this, what's the application
yeah,
stack, who's going to pay for it, that sort of thing. Well, you're already doing this probably, well, at least you should, with your backups. So if somebody spins up a resource instead of having to talk to you, hey, back this up and do this and do that with it, you can also implement policies where you can force them to add certain tags to it so that they are being sorted, those resources, into the
yeah,
appropriate backup policies. Of course. So you can do exactly the same thing with the resource control groups. So when you spin up a resource, you can automatically define that it needs to be backed up and how it needs to be backed up. And at the same time, with those same tags, you can then also define the resource control groups. How should it be turned off and when should it be turned off? You only set this up once and it's just completely menu driven. It's a graphical user interface. Another thing that's important is, well, I can also allow users control over these schedules. So what I mean by that is you might say, yeah, once I decide on a schedule, what if I need to overwrite the schedule? What if I have a database administrator? Yes, they do what I'm going to tell you next very often. What if I have a database administrator who likes working after hours on the weekend at 3 in the morning? And then is he going to give me a call so that I turn his database back on? That's not what I want. Now, remember, N2W Backup and Recovery has full multi-tenancy, which means I can allow users to log into the console and I can define what they're allowed to do. Literally, I can take away all features, all buttons, everything from them, but I can define that certain users should be allowed to go into the resource control groups and overwrite a schedule. And the way this works is pretty simple. All you have to do is you just choose the resource control group, and here are your two buttons. So you can turn off resources, you can allow users to do this, and you can also turn on resources as well. The big obvious advantage here is whoever I'm giving access to this, I don't need to give them access to my AWS console because I
yeah,
certainly don't want any user, my database administrator, to be able to go in here and do things within my AWS console. No. That's just too dangerous for me. I don't do that. So I give them access through the resource control groups. I can very specifically define what they're allowed to do. And here in this case, for example, I do this with my Windows servers. So if I
yeah,
browse into this, my operation targets, that's a whole bunch of Windows servers that I control with this. The schedule for these guys is much simpler. I just want to turn them off on the weekends. So you can make this as granular, as effective as you want it to be. And big surprise, that's really all there is to the resource control groups. As I said, there's a big learning curve. So what I thought is I'm going to give you a bonus way of saving money. You're going to find this also on the dashboard. The bonus way of saving money is volumes. So we're backing up your resources. We're facilitating the backups for you. We might as well report on what we're seeing in the process of that. And that's exactly what you see here. So here I can see how full are the volumes that we're backing up. This is just a generalization, just a visualization of what we found. But of course, I can get more detailed information on that as well. So if I click over here to volume usage, our volume usage feature is like having a personal assistant that checks in on your digital closet, making sure you're not cramming it full of stuff or letting it sit empty like that spare bedroom you swore would be a home gym. You see there's a theme here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if your
I see you
volumes,
hold a grudge for not working out in summer as you should have.
I know, now, but I have to get working. The next summer is going to come and I want to be in Speedo body quality. So here with the volumes, it's much easier than this. So if your volumes are getting full, well, we'll give you a friendly nudge before they spill over like an overstuffed suitcase. And if they're just sitting there, barely used, we'll call it out like, hey, are you ever going to make use of this space or is it just sitting here for show? Either way, we've got your back. Ensuring your storage is always in check. So over here, I can see my high usage. And remember that example that I gave in the beginning? SQL servers, when do they fill up? Yeah, after hours at 3 a.m. Well, I can catch this. So the N2W backup and recovery volume usage would then send me an alert and say, you should probably take a look at this and this particular instance because it's full. And conversely, remember Jeff Bezos has his own space program? Well, that's probably mostly based on the things that we leave turned on, like the light bulbs in the room when we're not in it. So here I have volumes that are literally at 0%. This is money out of my IT budget, and nobody's making use of this. So then I can either get rid of them altogether or I can consolidate them. But having the hard data where I can prove, hey, a specific team, a specific department has a whole bunch of volumes that we're paying for, but they're not making use of it. This is where you're going to get that information. And again, you need actionable data points. And those data points, they're going to be right here. So I can export my high volume usage and I can also export my low volume usage as well. So this is really all I need to start saving money. This is going to save me trouble because I can catch when somebody is overusing something. And I'm not going to have any downtime. And on the other hand, I also have that over provisioning. Remember, that was number 2 in that list of misconfiguration, over provisioning, and forgetfulness. So you're probably wondering, how can I find everything that I'm looking for? So when I have my resources, it all sounds great, but how can I actually see all the resources across all my accounts and regions? Because I might already have resources. I mean, we did talk about the tags, but that's going forward. So if you're not sure what can be safely turned off, don't worry, you're not alone. It's like opening your fridge and wondering, is this Tupperware still good or am I about to unleash something from the deep unknown? Getting a complete inventory of all of your EC2 and RDS instances can feel the same way. But fear not, we've got you back with our protected and unprotected resources report. It's like a cheat sheet that shows you exactly what's about to get tossed and what's still fresh. No more guessing games or surprises. Oh, I still need that sort of thing. And the way you get that information is also pretty simple. So you go over here to reports, go to immediate report generation, and that's going to give you protected resources. So this is something, well, everything that's being backed up. So that's one data point. And the other data point that we're looking for is the unprotected resources, because that's going to tell us, well, everything that's not being backed up. So when I put those two together, then yes, I have a complete inventory of all of my resources. And at that point, once I have that complete inventory across different regions, across different accounts, and these accounts, they don't even have to trust each other. So it's not like they all need to be under the same master payer account. So I can get a full inventory of everything we have. And then I can start making decisions based on, well, what are we going to turn it off and when do we want to turn it off? Because these can also be turned off if, well, they're not even something that we're dealing with. So it's extremely useful to have that information so that you see, well, what do we actually have in the environment, right? It's a short one. It's a short TLDR. That's really how easy that
That's why it's
feature
a
is.
TLDR. That's
Exactly.
why it's a TLDR. But I do have one question. is there, like, have you seen customers that shouldn't have used this? Like, are there environments where, everything needs to be, 24/7, you can't save anything, you can't turn off anything? Does that scenario even possible?
It depends. So I can't name names. Some of our customers, they obviously have resources in order to deal with a lot of business during regular business hours. However,
Mhm.
they don't have the same kind of business after hours. So after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you don't need 1,200 servers running in order to take
Yeah,
transactions, point of sale, that sort of thing. So at that
yeah.
point, after hours, it might be useful just to have 200 servers running. So
Hmm.
this is where I was talking about. Once you have your inventory and once you realize, well, what do we actually have in our environment and what do we really need? That's another one of those three big ones: misconfiguration, over provisioning, and forgetfulness. Kind of sort of misconfiguration, over provisioning. Do I really need 1,200 servers running at all times? Or maybe I can get
Yeah,
by with 200, and that is direct savings that I'm going to have back in my budget for other things that are probably more important. I would
right.
say it's something you need to think about, and the reports are going to help you actually pinpoint what you have and where you can save money.
Is that the first capability that you will use when you start with N2W, or you kind of wait for a little bit, setting everything up? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, the order of when to touch, resource control.
So because we just gave that example with Danny did this during the POC. When
Oh,
they
okay.
first
Got
rolled
it.
out our product, he immediately understood how powerful this is. So yes, they save a crazy, tremendous amount of money. It's like worth an entire house worth of money that they save by turning off things that they don't need. I wouldn't wait. This is really something you should immediately deploy. And it's
Yep.
so easy. I mean, you can do this just within a few minutes. You can choose what do I need and what don't I need and when do I want to turn it off. So this isn't like a
Yep.
project that's going to take you a week or two to get this off the ground. This is
Yep.
savings every single day you're not using this. You're basically just wasting money.
Cool. Perfect, Sebastian. Thank you. Great session. Great session.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Exciting news. As I mentioned, second session about cost saving with archiving comes up on October 9th. So see you there. And just before you go, we have a new campaign launching next week. It's about winning a trip, a VIP trip to reInvent. And we have a customer special for you guys. So besides the golden ticket, it's a luxury hotel stay. Limo picks you up and takes you back to the airport, and you get to enjoy a fancy dinner with the team while we're there. We have three winners from past years, so this is kind of a tradition for us, I think. So look out for this. We'll send some communication later next week. Thank you, everybody, for joining again.
Bye.
Bye.